Welcome back to Let's Play Out of the Park Baseball. You just watched us lose in the World Series. There's no way to beat around the bush. It didn't feel good. We've got a big offseason coming up. We're hoping to build a sustainable winning machine in Oakland. The season is over. We did a great job. We got an achievement for a season score of 961. That is a fantastic score. I can be proud. John Fisher has given us a budget of $144 million. That is a boost of $4 million, and it is the highest budget we have had so far. John Fisher has also DM'd us to give us a review of season goals. He was obviously very happy with the team record. He was not happy with our ability to improve stolen bases or acquire an MVP winner, but we did increase attendance. We have attempted to improve the fan interest. He hasn't seen much progress there, although to be honest with you, I do think it's up. But long term, I think we're looking pretty good. We're in the good graces of John Fisher for now. Pretty much all of our personnel were set to leave going into this offseason, but I extended them mid-season, so the only guy left to leave is the trainer, Randy Norman, and we've had some injury troubles with him. The prevent arm injuries that he's legendary at, that has not been a problem. We haven't really had too many bad arm injuries at all, but the ability to prevent other injuries has cost us at times. Ezequiel Tovar's option decision is needed. It's $25 million or a $5 million buyout. We've talked about this in the previous episode. I think the move here is to trade him, and we're going to move on from guys like Ezequiel Tovar and Jared Jones and Termarr Johnson this offseason, at least according to my plans. As I said previously, we are going to use this phase of the offseason to shed some salary. We're going to say goodbye to Tovar. We're going to say goodbye to Termarr Johnson. We just feel like that's the right move to keep this team sustainable, because you look at some of these arbitration salaries, and this is what happens when your team is good, right? Like Tyler Pitzer, who has high financial ambition, he came into my GM office, knocked on the door very politely and said, hey, price of the Pitt's going up. That's exactly what he said. And look, he wants $12 million. Brett Renfroe is due $10 million according to the ARB estimate. Daniel Cuvée, $9.5 million. This is what happens when your team is good. Even that ARB money can get expensive. So we're going to go ahead and make some trades during this phase to loosen up our very tight budget. This is our first trade of the offseason. It will be with the Kansas City Royals. We're going to say goodbye to Tovar, who has that team option coming up. I suppose the Royals would like to execute that. Even if we were to turn it down, it would cost us $5 million, so probably better to trade him in that case. Miguel Ullola is starting to get up there in the terms of the arbitration of $5.5 million, his estimate. He's like second or third on the reliever depth chart. And generally, he's been pretty good for us. I mean, he has a 3.48 ERA and 282 innings pitched, but I have to believe in my ability as a GM to replace that. He'd also like to be in the rotation, and that's not going to happen. Jaden Stroman's a guy we've had on the 40-man, 2025 second rounder. We have so many middle infielders, and I'm not done trading for them, so he's not important. Archundia and Trevino are basically just, organizational depth, I suppose. So here's who we'll be trading for. We are going to receive Dave Covert, who is another middle infielder option. We have a bunch of middle infielders in the player development lab. More on that later. But, just want to give us some options. I think we've got like 4 or 5 guys, and we maybe need 1 or 2 of them to be good. That's going to be generally my approach to that. Ward Sweetapple is a potential bullpen piece. I don't know if he would start the season on the Major League roster, but he has the potential to be a pretty good reliever. He's also a lefty. Jorge Carrillo, I quite like this guy. OSA does not, but my scout likes him. But just like great, I mean, that's very prototypical like third base ratings. Like he fits there perfectly. Good power, good eye, good contact potential. I would be excited about him. He's also durable, which is a nice little bonus. International free agent signing for the Royals a year ago. And then Luis Felix is just a depth starting pitcher, a 6'8" lefty. And this is a trade we are going to make. We'll say goodbye to Ullola and Tovar. In particular, Ullola, a great reliever for us for years. Tovar, the hero of the ALCS. But it's time to move forwards with the offseason. Termarr Johnson, you are a Colorado Rocky. Termarr Johnson, we're going to say goodbye to him. It's because the injury proneness is wrecked. And even though this is a very team-friendly extension, 5 years left on his deal at a very reasonable AAV, in fact, a very good AAV. We're the Moneyball A's, right? We don't have a lot of money, so we will miss Termarr Johnson and his ability to get on base 40% of the time, but it's time to move on. David Rivera also going to go in this trade. We got him in that same trade with the Mariners that brought Ethan Holiday, as well as Chris Pereira, our closer. Rivera was more of our setup man, and he's a great setup man. I'm going to be very sad to see him go. He had a very good year for us. He is getting into arbitration, but we are going to be, in fact, trading for a player who is also getting an arbitration and probably going to get more money. Woody Gladue and Jared Powers, these are late-round relief prospects, and they're not that exciting in terms of relief prospects. So who are we getting in return, right? Because these are two pretty good players with years of control that we're moving on from. We're going to get maybe the most popular player in this series, and that is Sincere Cabbagestalk, the 2031 first-rounder for the Rockies. Sincere Cabbagestalk, because of his name, has become somewhat of a legend in the comment section. People want to know, what is Sincere Cabbagestalk up to? People want to know why I didn't draft Sincere Cabbagestalk. This is redemption, all right? Now I'm going to have Sincere Cabbagestalk, and if you look at the ratings for Sincere Cabbagestalk, potentially an excellent third baseman. Just an excellent third baseman. I'd be very happy to have him as my third baseman. So Sincere Cabbagestalk is who we're going to get. Jeff Grantland is the other big piece. Jeff Grantland may just be the best closer in Major League Baseball in this save. I mean, him and Pereira, that's going to be pretty ridiculous. I don't know if we'll be able to hold on to both of them. Like, I'm still not sure how the budget's going to shake out, but I would love to have both of them in the same bullpen. I think that would just be total shutdown mode, because look at Chris Pereira last year. 50 saves, an ERA below 2. He pitches in Coors Field. Like, that's ridiculous. Imagine, we move him to Oakland. That's just absolutely absurd. David Sandoval's, to me, like a first base prospect with some good power, some good eye potential. He could be all right. And then Robbie Spector is more AAA pitching depth. But this is a trade we're going to make, and we're going to welcome Jeff Grantland into the big league team and Sincere Cabbagestalk into the minor league ranks. Here's how we're going to do arbitration. Apparently, you can just offer these guys a contract a little bit lower than their ARB estimate, and they'll pretty much always take it. I didn't know that, so good to wait 10 years to figure out how to do arbitration in this game. But that's good, because when these players resign, like, Pitzer and Renfroe and Cuvée, like guys who are really popular, I'll get a little boost in terms of the fan interest. And I wouldn't get that if I actually went to the ARB hearing with them. So that's the good news. I've figured out arbitration, ladies and germs. Have offered all these contracts to these players with a pound sign next to them, and will be non-tendering the rest. Probably the most intriguing non-tender is Jalen Nowlin, who was just, due a few million, and I felt like, for what he was giving us, it was basically replaceable. Eric Segura, we're going to non-tender. I think I'd probably talked about that at some point in the save. Bad 2032 for us at the big league level, although he had times in the rotation where he was better. Let's look at his major league career. Pitched for us for 4 years, 4.23 ERA, 2.5 WAR, and was actually an all-star in 2030 when the team was so terrible that he was our best option for that. So, and I'll always remember Eric Segura. I think he was the first player we drafted to make the big league. So that was something, right? So we'll miss Eric Segura, but we've got options there, like Barker, for example, who we don't have to pay over $1 million to. Probably the most surprising player to be tendered a contract is Vance Honeycutt, but I just like him. I just think he's neat. He plays 80-grade defense in center field. I like him. I'd like to keep him around as a 4th or 5th outfielder, and in this case, I'd be willing to pay $1.8 million. Connor Wong, non-tender, awesome year as a backup catcher, and we'll miss him, but we have Devin Hicks waiting to serve that same role, and I think he'll do just fine. We also have Eric Lukowski, who's another 40-man catcher, so I don't think we need Wong anymore. We definitely needed him a year ago, so that's why we traded for him, but now we can go ahead and go through with the non-tender. And the big one is Jared Jones, and I went back and forth on whether I wanted to offer Jared Jones the qualifying offer or not, because what he wants is a 4-year deal with an AAV very similar to the qualifying offer, because the trick here with Jared Jones is I don't want him to take it, right? I don't want him to accept it. If he does accept the qualifying offer, I would turn around and seek to trade him, and I might have to eat a little bit of that money, but I think it's worth it. I think, just the risk of trying to get an extra draft pick is worth it. And I think this does happen in Major League Baseball sometimes. I think it happens in Major League Baseball that a GM offers the qualifying offer hoping that the player won't accept, right? I think that definitely does happen. So that's how I'm going to go through with arbitration, and we'll move on with the offseason. It is award season. We didn't have any Gold Glove winners this year, but of course Ethan Holiday's brother Jackson won one for the Astros. Marcelo Meyer, now a Yankee and now a third baseman, grabs his second Gold Glove award, but his first at third base as he moves from shortstop to third. Oh, is he A-Rod? Is that what's happening? Are you A-Rod, Marcelo Meyer? Carson Williams, in that case, would be Derek Jeter, I suppose. But Brady Harris, who we saw in the playoffs, and Brady Murrieta and Alex McDonald, those guys win Gold Gloves as well. In the National League, it looks like this. Aiden Miller is sort of the new, dynasty in terms of National League Gold Glove at third base, like, Nolan Arenado. And then Jake Kingston from the Phillies. We've talked about him. Guy's just an absolute monster. Shoutouts Elijah Green on the Dodgers, though. Maybe a little bit of a late bloomer, and Ethan Salas grabs one. I was hoping Chris Pereira would have a shot at winning AL Reliever of the Year. He ends up finishing 4th. We really missed him in the World Series. I think that would have been a potential game changer if we had him. Andres Munoz is going to win this one. 100 strikeouts and 32 saves. Hard to argue with that. Brandon Eisert, who won the award in 2030, is the runner-up in 2032. That's impressive by him. And in the National League, believe it or not, it's Jeff Grantland. The guy we just traded for. So in a way, we do have the Reliever of the Year. Mason Miller also getting a down ballot vote. He finishes 3rd. Here are your AL Silver Slugger winners. It includes a lot of guys who just won Gold Gloves. That includes Alex McDonald, Jackson Holliday, Carson Williams, Brady Harris. Gosh, Brady Harris is just a monster. But Chris Greer, way to go, Chris Greer, grabs the Silver Slugger for the designated hitter position in his rookie year. Hopefully he'll be competitive for Rookie of the Year as well. That award to come. In the National League, it looks like this. Volpe is a second baseman for the Braves now. We've been following that saga. And James Wood, who is just an absolute monster in this save, does have a healthy season and produces an 1100 OPS and 8.9 WAR and 41 home runs and 25 steals. I think when healthy, he is the best player in this save. Your AL Rookie of the Year unanimously is indeed Chris Greer. This is wonderful news. He was our 2026 first-round draft pick, picked 6th overall. We had to wait a while. We had to get lucky with the player development lab, but then he had a monster season, led the American League in runs batted in with 147 and hits with 195, also slugged 45 home runs. Pat Frater, an outfielder for the Astros, finishes 2nd. And then in the National League, I'm going to say controversy. Controversy because Michel-Andy Philpott, a catcher for the Reds, has won it with 3.7 F4. And look, this is a very good season. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but Julio Morales, a starting pitcher for the Nationals, won the ERA crown at 2.75 in 186 innings pitched. 5.4 F4 for him. I don't know. I would have personally given it to the pitcher. The American League Manager of the Year is me, Foolish Bailey. But I was less than thrilled. I said, I don't give a darn about the award. I just want the team to win championships. That's true. We got close, but we lost to the Brewers. Chris Dunn, the manager of the Miami Marlins, is the National League Manager of the Year. Grayson Rodriguez is your American League Cy Young Award winner. He wins it for the Astros. He signed a contract with them a few years ago. That was back in 2029. 6 years, $183 million. I would say he has very much made it worth it this year with a 2.87 ERA. 223 strikeouts. He grabs his first career Cy Young Award. Tyler Pitzer finishes 5th. In the National League, it's going to be Paul Skeens. Is that his first one? Nope, it's his second one. He won in 2030 as well. Another great year for Paul Skeens for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They also have Edgar Siqueiros, so they have 1 and 2 in the voting. Julio Morales, who is that rookie pitcher we talked about, finishes 4th. Brady Harris does win MVP. I'm going to take back what I said about James Woods. I guess Brady Harris is probably the best player in this save. Guy is absolutely unbelievable. Won this award as a rookie back in 2030. Now he grabs his second career MVP. Chris Greer, though, gets a first-place vote and finishes 3rd, so he would have been a finalist. He would have been up there on MLB Network. They would have had to interview him from his home office via Zoom and just sit around there while everyone knows Brady Harris is going to win the award. Robbie Schaus, who we saw in the World Series, unanimously the MVP of the National League. Yeah, that's fair. Guy had an absolutely monster year. James Wood, the runner-up. November 23rd, we have salary arbitration hearings coming up. We don't have anyone to arbitrate with, but we are going to get the decision from Jared Jones as far as the $18.9 million qualifying offer. So basically, this is a one-year deal we offer him, and we hope he doesn't take it because when he gets signed, we'll get a compensation draft pick in the upcoming draft. So that's what we're kind of crossing our fingers for. It feels rude to be like, hey, Jared Jones, don't sign back with us, but that's kind of what we want. So we'll see what he decides to do. It's pretty borderline. And he will decline the qualifying offer. He becomes a free agent. This is technically good news, even though fans will be sad to see him go. So free agency has begun. We have a couple good fictional pitchers entering the scene. One of those is Tsuyoshi Yoshiba, who's a Japanese right-hander, only 26 years old. Maybe you could consider him kind of like Yamamoto in that sense, like how good his ratings are and the young age that he's coming over at. And then David Natera, a 32-year-old left-handed Cuban starter as well. And then in terms of free agents, it's just dominated by starting pitching to begin with. It's Ty Madden, it's Yumin Lin, who we've seen be a monster throughout this save, Tanner Bybee, Andrew Painter. JP Sears, I will point out, is one of the highest demanding free agents. He wants $22 million. And the reason for that is, if we look at his entire Major League career, we traded him to Colorado, and he pitched for San Francisco, and he pitched for the Angels. But really, he caught on with the Yankees in 2031 and 2032 and delivered 2 great seasons for them. And so at the age of 36, he is still very much a relevant major leaguer. So good for JP Sears. 70 control. That's great. This is to be honest with you, I would love to have him, but I don't think I have $22.5 million to bring him in. But good for JP Sears. Top position players are going to be Jordan Lawler and Colt Keith. I don't anticipate us, playing around the top of the free agent market. We may not sign a major league free agent at all. If we do, it'll probably be like a reliever or something like that. November 28th, I haven't showed off the player development lab just yet, but these guys have been in the lab for almost a month at this point. And even though the progress shows they're frustrated, that doesn't really mean much at this point. That'll sort of shift throughout the offseason. They still have 2 to 3 months in the lab, so that doesn't necessarily mean they won't achieve their goals. And you can see the focus is certainly on shortstop / middle infield. We want to get those guys better. Steve DeBona, we want to work on the power. Liddell Hungo, we want to work on the power. And his power's up to a 55 now. So Hungo, I think, will likely play into the big league club in 2033. Josh Van Noy, who's the all-glove, no-bat prospect we traded from with the Angels at the trade deadline, working on his two-strike approach because he's a 35 avoid Ks. Ethan Holiday working on the gap power. And then as far as guys who aren't middle infielders, we're going to have Jared Forrest working on his plate discipline because it's 65 but has potential for 75. I think he could just be like an on-base king. And then Mike Drake, we're going to work on improving the control. Look at the potential ratings and current ratings for Mike Drake. This guy is going to be an absolute monster pitcher for us. This year's Hall of Fame ballot is kind of stacked. It features Nolan Arenado, it features Freddie Freeman, it features Paul Goldschmidt, and it features a Mike Trout. Here's the final career stats for Mike Trout in this simulation. We will go ahead and submit our ballot. Because we freed up so much cash, we are now able to make some big-time contract extensions for our own homegrown players. We will start with Jared Forrest. Jared Forrest will earn the minimum this year, and then his contract will go like this through his age 31 season. Jared Forrest, a long-term Oakland A. Mike Drake. I mentioned not extending a pitcher, but I had to make an exception because of Mike Drake. Look at how Mike Drake has come along. Look at what a monster pitcher he already is with a 1.29 ERA in the regular season, but is also going to be because he's only 22 years old. We have signed Mike Drake to an extension as well. That is going to last 7 years. It'll go through his age 29 season, so he'll still have a chance to get paid after that, but he was really only interested in the 7-year deal, which does not include this year, where he will earn the minimum salary. And then finally, the one you probably wanted to see the most, Chris Greer signs a long-term deal with us through 2041. He will also earn the minimum this year, and it is the most costly of these deals by far. 8 years, $156 million, although this last year being a team option with a buyout. But yeah, Chris Greer is going to remain in Oakland A for many years to come. December 23rd is time for the Rule 5 draft. We do have a need for relievers. We have lost some relievers this past offseason. We do have a need for that. So if there's any sort of selection to be made, it would be in that department. So the best reliever available for me is definitely Wilson Castillo, but I've noticed that he is a big leaguer. He is on the Cubs. He has 2 years of major league service time. And the reason he is available in the Rule 5 draft is because he's on waivers. And because he's on waivers, he can't be on the 40-man. Because he's not on the 40-man, he is in the Rule 5 draft. So I'm not going to pick him necessarily. But what I will do is I will go over here and I will claim him from the waiver wire. Like so. And the reason I'm doing this is because he still has option years. So I wouldn't be able to option him to the minors if I Rule 5 drafted him, but if I'm able to actually claim him, then I would be able to do that. Otherwise, I will not be making a selection, and I'll have to use free agency and the trade market to fill out the rest of my bullpen. That will end the draft. We did have a player taken from us. That player is Dylan Collum, who had been a starter for us, although the Padres will use him as a reliever. And I'm kind of bummed by that just because he was low-key kind of a draft success in the sense that he was drafted in the 14th round by us back in 2028. So that's a late-round draft pick from us becoming a major leaguer, albeit with a different organization. So we wish him the best, but yeah, I did not want him on my 40-man, I suppose. January 1st, so I said I wasn't going to play at the top of the free agent market or much at all, but even with reallocating our money towards our draft budget and our development budget and our scouting budget, because our payroll is only like $60 million right now, we have cash. Like, we have cash and we could spend it. And this would be the best way to spend it. Even though our scouting accuracy on him is low, you can see if we look at the OSA, which is average, it says basically the same thing. Like, this is a good baseball player. This is a pitcher who is only 26. So I may entertain offering him a contract. I know the Yankees are interested as well. And if that gets into a bidding war, they probably beat us. But I would consider bidding on Yoshiba here, the fictional Japanese pitcher. January 7th, we have hired a new trainer named Paul Buchheit. And like our previous trainer, Randy Norman, he is legendary at preventing the arm injuries. But unlike Randy Norman, he is more well-rounded and better at preventing other injuries. Mike Trout and Freddie Freeman are headed to the Hall of Fame. It looks like Freddie Freeman is going to wear a Braves hat, although I was personally hoping that he would go in representing the Las Vegas Aviators, our AAA affiliate. So yeah, that's how we're going to do it this year. We're going to run a $60 million payroll, and our development budget is going to be maxed at $40 million. So an interesting way to go about business. I did look for trades to take on some salary, and honestly, none of them looked good. Infield is where we need help, and there's just no infielders available, period. There weren't any good infielders available in free agency, save maybe Colt Keith, who signed quickly. So yeah, I may have actually overdone it a little bit in terms of shedding the salary, but the fact of the matter is we have a lot of future salaries coming on, so it's probably not a bad idea to start at a low bar. Because, as you can see, we'd be taking a pretty big bump from 2033 to 2034. So I really do think maxing out that dev budget is just the best use of our money. Because, again, couldn't get the free agent signing I wanted. The Yankees ended up signing that Japanese pitcher. And that was really the only guy I would have wanted. And there just aren't good players available at the positions of need. It's January 14th. It is the day before the international free agent signing window opens. We still have 2 trades left to make. And here's the first one I'm going to make. We're going to make some small trades to improve our bullpen and overall pitching depth. We are going to trade away Alejandro Mesa, who was an international free agent signing for us 5 years ago. $3 million bonus. And even though these projected ratings look pretty good, like this could be a league average-ish hitter, maybe even slightly better, he has not developed quickly. Like I said, I signed him 5 years ago. He's not, he's still 35 contact, 35 power, 30 eye. That's not great. Maybe all the development could happen at once. And then defensively, he doesn't have the turn DP rating to be a second baseman, and the infield arm isn't ideal for third base. I'm not going to say it's terrible. It's just not quite ideal. So I'm okay with moving on from him. Sean McFalls was a 11th round catcher for us in 2030. Good defensive catcher, good organizational depth, but we'll move on from him as well. RJ Cope is who we will receive. This is a left-handed reliever. He has an option left, less than a year of service time in the big leagues. Ratings look like this, control potentially an issue. And we'll also receive Sergio Madden, who would be another guy sort of in the starting pitching depth category, but also I think you could convert him to a reliever potentially as well, because control is the thing he is suffers with most, and then lower stamina, so he could also be kind of in the reliever depth chart as well. We're just trying to add to our pitching depth. We're going to have to kind of mix and match some in the bullpen behind Pereira and Grantland, so this will be one of the trades we make. Let's go ahead and complete it. And then our second trade will be with the rebuilding Mariners. Rebuilding clearly because I fleeced them so bad last year when I got Holiday and Pereira and Rivera. But anyways, we're going to trade for a reliever by the name of Lema Danladi of South African descent, only 22 years old. Does have some big league service time. Yes, 15 days of it. So, you will have to have him on the 40-man. But yeah, he's another guy who's an option. right-hander, and then we'll also get Randy Couture because, look, if you can just trade for a weird guy with 80 avoid Ks, you might as well just do it, especially if their name is Randy Couture. In exchange, we'll send away Juan Cisneros, who was a scouting discovery for us last April. 70 power projection is pretty incredible. Nothing else is particularly good. So I'm okay with letting Juan Cisneros go. A lot of variance there, a lot of variability. Maybe this will make me look dumb in 5 years, but I'll take Lemon Dinwiddie now just to help boost the bullpen depth. As the January 15th window opens up, here are the guys we have been scouting. It's dominated by 3 outfielders at the very top. David Chagola, I don't know how to say that, is one of them. Although, to be honest with you, of these 3, he's probably my least favorite. I'm more inclined to look at Shojiro Nakamura, who is just crazy, like contact-oriented and fast, speedster, nicknamed Roach, and Esteban Flores, nicknamed Joey Barrels. Why not? Big power, big gap power, also good speed, and also rangy. So I'd be more inclined to look at these 2 than this one. And then we have some lower and mid-tier signing potential as well. January 19th, Jared Jones has signed with the Tampa Bay Rays. You'll recall that we had a qualifying offer out for him. It was a 4-year, $60 million deal, and that added up to a supplemental first-round pick. So that's a fantastic outcome for us. We will have another first-rounder in this year's draft. In terms of the IFA class, I'm clearly just going to have to choose between either Flores or Nakamura. The bidding is getting to well over, 4 or 5 million for those guys, so I'm probably just going to hope to get one of them at this point. Not sure who I end up with, though. So Flores did end up signing with the Miami Marlins, $5.7 million. That is the max. So now I'm in a tricky situation here because I do want Nakamura, and actually decided I did want Nakamura more, and I have offered him a deal. It's for $4.7 million, but if some team swoops in and gives him the $5.7 million, I have no backup plan, really. I mean, I really want Nakamura. I probably should have just gone ahead and offered him the max. So we'll see if there's another round of bidding. I'll definitely offer him the max. But yeah, I could have botched this one. We'll see. I really want Nakamura, though. I love the contact. Okay, good news. Nakamura has gotten back to us. He does have a better offer from Cincinnati, which is not surprising that he has a better offer. And it's for $5.5 million. So pretty simple. I mean, what we do is we just max it out here. And this would be our entire class if he signs. And he does sign with us. On January 30th, we inked Shojiro Nakamura to a deal, and he will join us for $5.7 million. That is the entirety of our budget, but I'm excited to have him. February 17th is time for spring training. We have invited everyone on the 40-man roster to join us for spring training, and we will narrow down to the final 26-man roster, hoping that nobody gets injured along the way. We have our results from the player development lab. Mike Drake was able to improve his control. His control is now a 60 on the 20 to 80 scale. Steve DeBona improved his power. His power is now a 45 on the 20 to 80 scale, although his projected overall is only 3 stars. I think it was 4 stars not that long ago, so, kind of a bummer there. And then Josh Van Noy was able to improve his avoid Ks. His avoid Ks is now a 40 on the 20 to 80 scale, and it could be a 45. So that's all a very good sign. Liddell Hongo and Jared Forrest and Ethan Holiday were not able to improve upon their goals. That being said, 3 for 6 ain't bad. Well, we made it to opening day, but the bad news is we did not make it to opening day unscathed. Our pitching in particular has taken a hit. Alexis Cisneros, who we traded Kevin Skeet for at the deadline last year, has a partially torn UCL. He will miss the entire season. This is going to, really push our depth in terms of the rotation. Cam Caminiti also has a substantial day-to-day injury. I don't know if he'll be ready for opening day. I wouldn't want to pitch him with a substantial day-to-day injury. And then Robbie Spector, who we just traded for in this episode in that trade with Colorado, he has shoulder inflammation, so he will not be part of the starting pitching depth for now. So I'll have to figure that out. Josh Van Noy also with a day-to-day injury. I'll have to figure that out as well. But let's narrow it down to our final 26. Oh, and one more thing. Dylan Collum, who was Rule 5 to us, has been returned to us. Alright, ladies and germs, this is how we will line up going into 2033. No platooning going on. It's the same starters at the same positions no matter what. Although, that could change later on in the season. Versus right-handed pitching, we're going to have Dave Sochi lead off. He takes the leadoff spot from Chris Baker after an excellent 2032. Baker will bat second, Chris Greer third, And then fourth, new cleanup hitter, Jeremy Okoro. We're going to give Jeremy Okoro a shot at cleanup. His power has really come along. He's at a 60 power with a 65 potential right now. Cuvée batting fifth, Holiday sixth, and playing third base now. Cox seventh and playing second base now. Jared Forrest, the catcher. And then finally, Josh Van Noy will be the starting shortstop for now. This is not necessarily a big league caliber hitter, but it is an all-time great defender, truly. He's an 85 on the 20 to 80 scale as a shortstop. He could be more of a role player as the season goes along. I think Liddell Hungo is really close, but I do want to give him some more time in AAA. But probably Liddell Hungo will take over for Josh Van Noy sooner rather than later. Against lefties, not much changes. Holiday drops down a couple spots. Cuvée moves up a couple spots. Those are the main guys with platoon differences. Pitching-wise, it's going to look like this. Our pitching depth has definitely taken a hit with the injury to Alexis Cisneros, and I think with that injury, it just kind of confirms this team isn't as strong as last year. I think that's fair to say. And you could have maybe squinted and maybe and justified it a little bit before Cisneros got hurt. Now that he's hurt, this team is definitely worse. I would still like to make the playoffs. I think that's definitely the goal for the season. That is the goal from our owner. We have to make the playoffs. If we don't make the playoffs, this season is a failure. If we do make the playoffs, then this season is success because we are going to be investing a lot into player development. We're going to have 2 draft picks in the first round, et cetera, et cetera. So we could build up a lot of talent in the minor league system as this season rolls along. Of course, we got a bunch of new minor leaguers in this very episode. Anyways, Pitzer, Renfroe, Drake, Caminiti, provided that he recovers from his substantial back injury in time. And then Pete Barker, going to be our 5th starter, acquired him in the Vinny Pasquantino trade. I guess that was about 3-4 seasons ago. And he has injury concerns himself. You can see his injury history right there. Missed most of September with a surgery on his elbow. He's had some day-to-day injuries even in the spring, so we'll see how long he lasts. I guess Braylon Dowdy would be an option. He'll be our long reliever for now. Bullpen sets up like this: Castillo, Cope, Lema Dunlady, and Tim Salcedo in middle relief. Salcedo getting probably the most coveted spot in middle relief. And it's going to be Connor Gatwood, who we acquired at the deadline last year to be a stopper. He was great down the stretch for us, a 1.21 ERA. He'll be that stopper position akin to a 7th inning guy. Chris Pereira akin to the 8th inning setup guy. And Jeff Grantland, the new closer. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and the next one we'll find out whether last year was a fluke or whether this Oakland A's team is in fact a sustainable winner.